right. I believe we are live. I hope you guys are doing well. Gonna give it a little bit here, let some people come on in, and then we'll get started. But today, gonna be talking about the stock market and oppression. So, it should be interesting. I mean, just look at the GameStop stock. It's ridiculous. AMC, it's insane. But we'll get into that. I just got done walking, walked over a mile, just thinking, looking at nature and just enjoying the scenery. And yeah, so I also planted some more microgreens today. Got some sunflowers growing, arugula, and buckwheat, and one other that I can't think of off the top of my head. But anyway, yeah, so got that going, and it should be nice. My plan is to begin to give some to my neighbors, give some to family, because when we were growing the dun peas, they came in pretty well, and we had too much of it. So, I mean, we ate it all, but it was more than we would use. I snacked on it, but it was enough to definitely share with others. So I think this go around, we're going to start sharing it. Um, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so I got that going now. It's been a while since I planted anything. So we'll see within the next week or 2 weeks, we should be ready to harvest, which is awesome. So, but yeah, so the topic for today is stock markets and depression. All right. So we all know GameStop is ridiculous right now. Their stock, AMC, even my buddy even showed me Tootsie Roll stock is going insane as well. And this is indicative of a collapse, And Owen Benjamin, I follow him on Instagram, and also I watch his streams. I haven't watched his stream today or yesterday, I don't believe. But anyway, he's made a really good point about the way the stock market has been going, like as of lately, with the younger generations on Reddit who are like, "Fuck it, let's just ride this stock up as far as it'll go," because they know it's a scheme. Like a lot of older generations that are in the stock market, like your Peter Schiff characters, they view that as an idiotic move. However, the younger generation realizes this is just a confidence game, and so if you have enough people putting money into the stock, it's going to increase in price, not in value but in price, and you can make a shit ton of money as they're doing. And so they feel this is a way that they're sticking it to the man, but in reality it's having the opposite effect. It's making them become the man and sticking it to their parents and their grandparents, because you have these hedge funds that are struggling now because they shorted GameStop, and now GameStop is just exploding. I mean, they shorted it, if I'm not mistaken, back when it was like $2 or something, even maybe even before that, and now it's like $400. That's insane. And so it's having this opposite. It's a transfer of wealth, that's for sure, but it's also a transfer of karmic debt, I believe. So you won't get away with it. That's why I got rid of my Bitcoin once I realized exactly what it was and how it will be implemented, or what needs to happen in order for it to be implemented, i.e., depopulation. I realized I did not want that on my conscience, nor did I want the karmic debt. And that is what's going to, I believe, happen with these people who are making tremendous gains. Like, that's awesome. On my walk today, I was like, man, wouldn't that be something? Like, what if I would have invested, as we all do from time to time? What if I would have invested in GameStop at $2 last April? Even just $1,000, even just $1,000. Um, how much money would I have right now? You know, you do the math, whatever. And you get this feeling of uh, missing out, like you missed the ride, but you really didn't because it's going to crash and it's not a good way to make money and it's not sustainable. You want to find things that actually have value, and what's the most valuable thing you can have is family, community, and that's the most valuable thing. But we're so caught up in this materialistic world that we feel it's necessary to acquire as much paper, uh, Babylon paper squares as we can in order to survive. When that's the total opposite. It's the total opposite of reality. Because community and family are the most valuable thing you can have. If you have a strong family and a strong community, you are wealthy. You are very wealthy. Because wealth, I think, is more about the resources, the natural resources that one possesses, at within arm's reach. Not something that where like if you were rich, not wealthy, you would have the money to buy natural resources, as opposed to wealth would just be those natural resources um, are within your network. So it's not so much necessary for you to have to pay for something. You can barter. You can just that connection. Like I know back in Michigan, for example, where I'm originally from, I had a buddy whose dad owned a garbage company. He still owns it. I believe they own a couple in a campground. That kind of network is wealth because whenever we would have an issue, or like whenever somebody I knew needed a dumpster, I would provide my buddy with business and also provide whoever needed it with a discount because I'm their reference. I'm their reference point. So, and not only that, but there were times where we needed a dumpster, my parents or whatever, and so that was huge. And tow trucks as well. They own tow trucks, so that was huge. In the campground alone, that would always give you a place to go to. It was a refuge, if need be. But there was just tremendous amount of value in that relationship. Not saying that the relationship was only about his parents' campground and garbage companies and tow trucks. Obviously, we had a good relationship, a good friendship, but that's just a byproduct of that friendship, or the people he associates with, or his family's his family is, and that's why community. And I had another buddy in Michigan. I still do. I would say they're more so acquaintances now, just because of time. We don't talk as much as we used to now that I'm in Ohio. But another buddy whose dad owns a transmission company, a transmission repair shop, and that is an invaluable resource to have because say something happens to my vehicle, I have a shop that I can go to and a trusted mechanic, not just somebody that I've looked up on Yelp and read the reviews that may be accurate or not be, So things like that, or another buddy whose dad owned a pizza shop and a couple other businesses as well. So it's like these things are more valuable than the relationships is what I'm saying are the most valuable things. So that's why community and family is so important, especially in these times, because I really started to think about whether or not it is the right time to do something locally or on a state level, politically speaking, because we have so much work to do ourselves, and we need to be able to remain in honor while we try and put somebody in a position of authority to represent us to remain in honor as well. So there has to be a balance between the two in order for us to keep them in check. And right now, I think that we're so far off from that. We're so far off from that. And that's not a knock at anything. I mean, a lot of people are waking up, and that's a beautiful thing. There's a lot of things that I need to work on. For example, I got large blizzard from Dairy Queen today, and I'm always complaining about my weight. So that's something that I'm consciously aware of that I need to work on. And it can be something that little. Like there are things that we ourselves need to work on before we think that we can change, the world. Because first off, most of us aren't going to change the world in this um like in the sense that it's painted in like commercials and things like that with like you're helping save the ocean or shit like that. No, the way you will change the world is by affecting your community in a positive way or a negative way, because that ripples out. That community, has an extended community as well, just like you have an extended family. And so that extent, goes on and on and on, just like a family tree does. So what you do really does matter on just the local level, and that will ripple out, and that's where you should focus most of your attention, especially since most of our responsibility is simply at a local level. Most people don't have to worry about, you know managing millions or thousands or hundreds or tens to hundreds of people. Most people don't have to worry about that. Most people just have to worry about their family and providing for them and being a good neighbor, and that is where most of our focus should be. And so I don't know if necessarily working towards putting somebody in a local office or state office will do much help, especially if the people aren't going to do their part. And that's the hardest thing, is to have a good moral society on an individual level, because that is the foundation for the government, for its moral basis is the people. It derives that from the people. Because if you look at countries like the Soviet Union or the communist Chinese, the people were leaning towards these socialist, communist governments because they thought it would be just, it would be more fair, and they would have more of a say. But that's because they wanted to reduce their responsibility. Because they wanted to reduce their responsibility, the state had to take on more responsibility, because that's what they wanted, the people. And so as the people, you know, got became less responsible for their lives, so they thought, the state became more tyrannical and trying to keep that foundation intact. And that's why we had the gulags and things of that nature, or the SS officers, is because we needed, or they needed rather, to protect the foundation on which it was built upon. You read, I think it's like the Article 2 in the Soviet Union Constitution. It basically says that the socialist economy is going to be like the basis for the Soviet Union. And that's unique because most constitutions don't really illustrate what their economic plans are going to be. But with the Marxist constitutions, the communist constitutions that came out in the early 1900s to mid 1900s, I believe, explicitly stated what kind of economic system they had. And so this is sort of where America is heading on a federal level, on this top down level, which will trickle down. I mean, it's going to trickle down into all facets of life, but I believe we'll see secessions, we'll see probably some form of civil war in bigger cities and bigger states, or more divided states. And maybe not like a physical civil war, but a split within the state itself. Like maybe there'll be like a northern Ohio and a southern Ohio, and they'll break off into two different states. I'm just totally I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work out. I'm just freestyling here with my thoughts. But so in the future, we're going to be facing these kind of things, and we're going towards a more communist um, nation, and that's okay. We should embrace the oppression. We have lived a very a tremendous life. We have so many beautiful things, so many luxurious things that our grandfathers, or fathers, or great grandparents, etc., uh, couldn't have dreamed of having that we have. And so, for us to get knocked down a peg or two really won't be that big of a deal. And it'll definitely help because if you look at the Muslim countries, they have faced so much oppression very recently, and they're a strong people. They are a strong people. And it's what this nation deserves too. We've gone so far away from God. And since we've gone so far away from God, we need to fall. That'll bring more people to God. That's why this past year was the Great Awakening. I have a buddy who asked me how I became Christian or started to become, very strong in my faith. What sparked that? And really, it had to do with discovering the underbelly of society, the as they will call it, conspiracy theorists or conspiracy theories are actual events, not the fake mainstream narrative of history. And just to clarify the conspiracy theorist thing, real quick, it simply means that you're theorizing two or more people getting together to accomplish something nefarious. That's all. Okay. And our founding fathers thought some other, their counterparts were conspiring against the nation. Alexander Hamilton accused, if I'm not mistaken, John Adams of working with the British. And Thomas Jefferson, I believe, accused Alexander Hamilton of the same thing. So, the conspiracy theories are sort of the bedrock of American civilization, of the United States. But anyway, getting to where I was going with that, discovering the pedophiles and these things uh, really showed me that there's bad in the world, there's evil in the world on a really at a really dark level, which then, logically speaking, if there is something that's really evil, then there has to be something that's really good. Long story short, that's how I found Christ and became a Christian. And a lot of people are experiencing that right now and in 2020. So it's a beautiful thing, but with it, people are also waking up to the fact that there's a communist takeover in America, but that's been going on for a long time. And they're just looking at it from the now as opposed to the past, like the accumulation of events that have happened over the past decades that led up to where we are now. They all, from free trade to illegal immigration to all of these things, you name it, have just accumulated to what it just built up to where we are now. And so it's a cycle. It's a cycle, and we're going towards the downturn of that cycle, which means the only place we can go is up, and that's where we need to focus on. And so it's all since we need to focus on that, we therefore need to not fear what's coming, because if we're fearful of communism, we won't be able to move. We'll be caught in anxiety. We'll be ready to go to war over nonsense. Because in the Soviet Union, contrary to popular belief, not everything was totally owned by the state. There was a small portion or like a little small sliver of industry that was able to remain private, and that was small plots of land owned by families that were no larger than 1.2 acres, and they could grow their own food for their family sustenance, but also if there were surplus, if there was a surplus, they could then provide that to their neighbors or the greater community for profit. So the more natural of a life you live, the more within your means you live, the more the simpler you live, the negativity, the bad of whatever hellish world you can envision will sort of seem insignificant, seem insignificant, like it doesn't even really bother you. Just remaining in Logos. I know all the stories about the Orthodox Church and the persecution of Christians. I get that. Trust me, I get it. But what if you were just doing it in your home on your small private plot, helping your family out, helping your community out? See, this is where the Bible also comes into play with love thy neighbor, which is why I was saying earlier that community is more valuable than any kind of money, and so is family. Because if you were to love your neighbor, raise a good family, own 1.2 acres of land or less, provide, make grow all the food you need for your family, and then grow, and then the surplus, make your money and help other people as well. Maybe not even make any money if you don't need to, and just trade or just gift it. Like, that's why I'm really not worried about oppression. I had that realization as I was on my walk today that only 3% of the population had these small private plots. And you know how much of the agricultural output they produced? A quarter. A quarter. A quarter of it. 25%. 3% produced 25% of the agricultural output in the Soviet Union. That's insane. That's the real 3%. There's a show on Netflix, a Brazilian show of called The 3%, and the premise of it is these people in the poor end of society have to go through this test, these series of tests to see if they're worthy of being a part of the sort of breakaway civilization of Brazil, uh, called the 3%ers. And they live this glamorous lifestyle, the elites essentially, the haves and have nots. And they want us to believe that that's what the 3% looks like. But the 3% actually looks like the ones who are, the people who are making 25% of the nation's food. That's the real 3%. Are the people owning 1.2 acres of land or less and having enough food for their family, and then making, some extra income by trading with their neighbors, selling it to their neighbors or farmers markets. And so, with everything that's happening in the stock market, with everything that's happening in the political realm, it's more important now than ever to reconnect to nature. Start growing your own food. Microgreens, man, they're super cheap. Not really. I mean, kind of though. They're not. I mean, you can get the set that I have. I think the starting kit came with a bunch of seeds, soil, like 10 trays, everything you need, a spray bottle for like $120. And then you can make your own soil, get a compost pile, etc. Do the regenerative soil thing. So, that's very doable. If you don't have a greenhouse or anything of that nature, you can grow food inside your own house with the microgreens then you can grow food outside. Like these are very, doable things. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to take action and do it. And I would highly recommend you do so because that's more powerful than being a part of this nonsensical bull run of GameStop. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's awesome if you made a shit ton of money off of it. I mean, hell, people have probably become millionaires from it. But now people's pensions are decimated, not so much because of it, but because of the system, and because of their own greed as well. The boomers, older generations, etc., are equally responsible for the financial demise that we're experiencing currently. It's not just the Federal Reserve, it's not just the government, it's the citizens as well who were very greedy and wanted debt to get things that they couldn't afford. And so now they're paying the price for it. That's the karmic debt that they accumulated through their lifetime. And now this or my generation and the younger generation are going to inherit some of that karmic debt with this transfer of wealth, that's occurring right now. And yeah, but that's why the most important thing is to build strong communities, have a family, start growing your own food. That's why, like I've been saying in my streams on Facebook and my blog post, etc., to lower our dependency and localized supply chains. If we can do that, there's not there's nothing that we can't survive. And that just goes to, and what I just shared with you guys about the Soviet Union, I think proves that pretty pretty well. Um, so yeah, but that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I don't really have anything else to add. Um, Now, if you guys have anything you want to talk about, any questions, any comments, feel free. If not, that's cool too, and we'll just we'll we'll call it a night. But I'll be, like I said, I'll be doing my live streams from here on YouTube until I get banned. If I do get banned, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so that's that. I hope you all have a wonderful night or day, whatever time it is, wherever you are watching this. But all right, much love, peace.